Anyway, I'm on the phone with Angus, struggling to understand what went wrong with The Little Mermaid. And Angus, since he's Angus, says, oh, the thing you have to understand is that there's actually two categories of fairy tales. The original kind and the modern kind.
So there are these two amazing things that we start to see in Straparola's fairy tales, which again are the kind of most ancient ones we have written down. The first is that good luck happens to people who are fools. So a fool might find a lucky fish, and by a fool I mean an actual fool. I mean somebody who is so dense in the story that he says terrible, rude things to everybody he meets, is an inept fisher person, has no apparent positive qualities whatsoever, and then ends up a prince. And it can go even further than that. It can happen to people who are bad. Audiences wanted to believe that life could suddenly go from bad to good.
It's not simply that life could suddenly go from, that there could be a sudden twist. It's that the twist would be unrelated to the disposition and character of the protagonist. That I didn't have to meet a certain qualification to be eligible for this good fortune. It was bestowed on anyone.
Yeah.
But then, in the 17th century, fairy tales took a dramatic turn. The key figure was the French writer Charles Perrault. He read the fairy tales that had been collected by earlier writers and loved them, wanted to share them with the world. But Perrault thought they needed a little tweaking.
He said, you know what? These tales are so primitive. They were written before the age of reason. They were written before the Enlightenment. And reason tells us that all these instances in which good things are coming from bad, they can't happen. So I'm just going to make these changes. I'm going to change it so that good things only happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. And so there's no more good happening to bad. There's only good happening to good.
The classic example of this second type of story is Cinderella, an ancient tale which Charles Perrault revised. Later, the Brothers Grimm did their own version of the tale in Germany. The Cinderella story gets adapted for the screen by Walt Disney in maybe the most famous of all of his animated movies. But it's only the dreams and wishes of the beautiful, angelic Cinderella that come true. With Cinderella, Disney went all in on poetic justice.
The famous movie that so many of us saw as children, Cinderella, that rescued the Magic Kingdom from bankruptcy and became the logo of Disney. And ever since then, all of Disney's fairy tales have had that same story model of good coming from good, or virtue rewarded, or poetic justice. It's this inheritance of the Enlightenment. There's been this whole history of condemning Disney fairy tales because they're not realistic, or because they advance kind of stereotypes or kind of unrealistic expectations about what princesses should be, and so on and so forth. But it turned out it really wasn't any of those things that was going on. It was the narrative structure.
The kids liked the characters, the adventure, the humor, the idea that mice and other animals could do all manner of cool things. But they struggled with the idea that good always comes from good, and bad from bad. Now, why does this matter to our discussion of the Little Mermaid film? Because The Little Mermaid is poetic justice on steroids. Good things happen not just to good people, but to rich and powerful and beautiful people. And bad things happen not just to bad people, but ugly bad people.
It feels awfully rote. When you watch the movie, you just feel from the beginning like you know what's going to happen.
I don't know if there's any way not to. We do have to kind of put Ursula in her place.
No, you do not.
I still couldn't get it out of my head that bad had to come from bad. It was as if everything Fletcher had tried to tell me had sailed right over my head.
I mean, we have this obsession in the modern world that somehow if you do something bad, you have to be punished for it. No, if you do something bad, we just have to make sure you don't do that bad thing again. You know, it's rehabilitation. It's medicine. I mean, you know, we don't punish diseases.
Oh, so you think we should fix Ursula?
Well, I think we should just stop her from doing whatever she's doing. We should have a conversation with her about maybe why this isn't helpful.